Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Today I want to share something very personal with you. This is not just a story. This is one simple decision that changed how I see my time, my mind, and my life. I spent one full day without my phone. No messages, no social media, no scrolling, no notifications, just me and the real world. And in this video, I will tell you exactly why I made this decision, what was happening inside my mind, and what I was feeling before that day even started. And as you listen to this story, you're not just learning about focus and discipline, you're also improving your English. You are training your ears to understand natural sentences. You are learning real vocabulary used in daily life. You are seeing how ideas connect smoothly in English when you listen carefully, repeat sentences, and think about the meaning. Your speaking confidence slowly becomes stronger. So if you want to grow your English step by step in a simple and powerful way, make sure you subscribe. Here, we don't just tell stories, we build better English and stronger minds together. My name is Emma, and I didn't wake up one day and suddenly become strong and disciplined. No, this decision came from frustration. It came from exhaustion. It came from a quiet moment where I looked at myself and asked one painful question. Am I living or just scrolling? Let me explain. Every single morning my alarm rang at 7 a.m., but I didn't wake up because I was excited about my day. I woke up because my phone screamed at me. The first thing I touched every morning was not water, not sunlight, not even my own thoughts. It was my phone. Before my feet touched the floor, I was already checking. Messages, social media notifications, emails, random videos. 5 minutes turned into 15. 15 turned into 30. Sometimes I didn't even remember what I watched, but my brain already felt tired, and the day had not even started. At first, I thought this was normal. Everyone uses their phone. Everyone scrolls. But slowly, I started noticing something dangerous. I couldn't sit quietly for even 5 minutes without feeling uncomfortable. If there was silence, I grabbed my phone. If I was waiting in line, I grabbed my phone. If I felt bored, stressed, lonely, confused, I grabbed my phone. It became my escape from everything. And the worst part? I didn't even enjoy it anymore. One evening, I was sitting on my bed. It was 11:45 p.m. I told myself I would sleep at 10:30, but I was still scrolling. Video after video, post after post. My eyes were burning. My head felt heavy. And suddenly, I realized something shocking. I had spent almost 4 hours on my phone, and I couldn't remember a single useful thing I saw. Not one. That moment scared me, because I started thinking about time. Time is the only thing we can never get back, and I was giving it away, for nothing. I also noticed changes inside me. I felt more impatient. I felt more distracted. When I tried to read a book, I couldn't focus for more than 5 minutes. When I talked to my mom, I sometimes half listened while checking notifications. Even when I was with friends, I sometimes wanted to check my phone. I wasn't fully present anywhere. My body was in the room, but my mind was somewhere else. And that is when I understood something powerful. My phone was not just a device anymore. It was controlling my attention, and attention is power. Where your attention goes, your life goes. Another problem was something called fear of missing out. I was afraid that if I didn't check my phone, I would miss something important. A message, an update, some news. But honestly, most of the things I was afraid of missing were not important at all. They were just noise. and that noise was filling my brain every single day. So one night, I made a promise to myself. I said, Emma, tomorrow you will live one full day without your phone. Just one day. Let's see what happens. I wasn't trying to become perfect. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I just wanted to test myself. I wanted to see, can I control my phone? Or does my phone control me? That question became very serious for me, because if I cannot control small habits, how will I control big goals? If I cannot control one device, how will I control my life? To be honest, I was nervous. I felt uncomfortable even thinking about it. What if someone needed me? What if I felt bored? What if I failed? But I also felt something else, excitement. Because deep inside, I knew this was not just about a phone. It was about freedom. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from constant noise. Freedom from living inside a screen. That night, before sleeping, I put my phone inside my drawer. Not on my table, not near my pillow, inside the drawer. And I told myself, tomorrow, I will meet the real world again. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know how hard it would be. But I knew one thing. Something had to change, because I didn't want to wake up 5 years later and realize that I lived my best years through a small glowing screen. The morning without my phone. The next morning, my alarm did not wake me up, because I did not use my phone alarm. I had already decided that if I was serious about this challenge, I had to do it properly. So the night before, I set a small old alarm clock that was lying in my drawer. I had not used it in years. It felt strange to prepare like that, almost dramatic. But deep inside, I knew this was important. At 7 a.m., the alarm clock rang loudly. It was not a soft digital sound. It was sharp and real. I opened my eyes slowly. For a few seconds, I forgot about my decision. My hand automatically moved to the right side of my bed, where my phone usually sleeps. But it wasn't there. That was the first shock. My fingers touched nothing. And suddenly, I remembered. Today was the day. I sat up slowly, and something interesting happened. There was silence. No notification sounds, no screen lighting up, no vibration, just quiet. At first, that silence felt uncomfortable. It almost felt empty. My brain was expecting stimulation. It was expecting information. It was expecting noise. But there was nothing, and that nothing felt strange. I want to be honest. The hardest part was not the whole day. It was the first 20 minutes. My mind kept whispering, just check quickly. Maybe someone sent something important. It will take only 1 minute. This is how habits talk. They don't scream, they whisper, they sound reasonable. But I knew that if I touched my phone even once, the experiment would end. So instead of grabbing my phone, I did something simple. I stood up. I walked to the window. I opened the curtains, and sunlight entered my room. That moment felt different. Usually the first light I see every day is blue light from my screen. But this time, it was real sunlight. Warm, soft, natural. I stood there quietly for almost 5 minutes, and something surprising happened. My mind felt slower. Not slow in a bad way, slow in a peaceful way. There were no sudden images, no fast videos, no loud sounds, just my own thoughts. And I realized something powerful. I had not given my brain a calm morning in a very long time. After washing my face and brushing my teeth, I went to the kitchen. Normally, I carry my phone everywhere, even to the kitchen, even to the bathroom sometimes. I would watch short videos while making breakfast. But today, my hands were empty. At first, it felt awkward. I didn't know what to do with my free hand. That may sound funny, but it is true. When you are used to holding something all the time, emptiness feels uncomfortable. I decided to make something simple: eggs and toast with tea. While the water was boiling, I just stood there. And that's when I noticed something small but beautiful. I could hear the sound of water boiling clearly. I could smell the bread getting warm in the toaster. I could feel the heat from the stove. These small details were always there, but I never paid attention to them, because my attention was always inside a screen. This morning, I was fully present, and I started to understand something. When you remove constant distraction, life becomes more detailed. I sat down at the table with my plate. Usually, breakfast is fast. I eat while scrolling. I barely taste the food. But this time, there was no screen in front of me. Just my plate and my thoughts. The first few minutes felt boring. My brain wanted entertainment. It wanted fast images. It wanted stimulation. But I forced myself to stay. I took one bite slowly, and I realized something strange. The food tasted better. Not because it was special, but because I was actually paying attention. When you eat while watching something, your brain is busy somewhere else. But when you eat in silence, your senses become stronger. I felt grateful for that simple breakfast, and that feeling surprised me. Around 9 a.m., the strong urge came again. I started thinking, maybe I should just check messages for 1 minute. My heart was not racing, I was not stressed, but I felt a small anxiety. It was like my brain was uncomfortable with not knowing what was happening online. And that was the moment I understood how deep the habit was. It was not about communication, it was about control. My brain was addicted to constant updates, and when there were no updates, it felt restless. So instead of giving in, I decided to do something different. I took a notebook, and I wrote down what I was feeling. I wrote, I feel uncomfortable not checking my phone. I feel like I am missing something, but I also feel calm. Writing those words helped me understand my own mind. And here is something powerful I learned. When you observe your habit instead of following it, you weaken it. I did not fight my urge aggressively, I simply noticed it. And slowly, the urge became weaker. Around 10 a.m., I decided to clean my room. This may sound like a small activity, but for me, it was important. Usually, cleaning takes a long time because I stop every few minutes to check my phone. One message, one notification, one video, and suddenly 30 minutes are gone. But today, there was nothing to interrupt me. I started organizing my desk. I sorted my books. I removed old papers. I folded my clothes properly. And something amazing happened. I finished everything in almost half the time, and I was not tired. Because my attention was not jumping from one thing to another. It was stable, and I felt proud. Not because I cleaned my room, but because I proved to myself that I could stay focused. That feeling was powerful. By late morning, something changed inside me. The silence that felt uncomfortable earlier now felt normal. My thoughts became clearer. I was not thinking about 10 things at the same time. I was not comparing my life to other people's posts. I was not reacting to notifications. I was simply living the moment. And I understood something very important. When your mind is not constantly reacting, it becomes stronger. Distraction makes the mind weak. Presence makes the mind powerful. Even before lunchtime, I had already learned more about myself than I expected. I learned that my habit was stronger than I thought. My attention had been stolen slowly. Silence is uncomfortable only in the beginning. Focus feels good when you allow it. And I started asking myself a new question. If half a day feels this different, what would happen if I lived like this more often? But I also knew the real test was still coming. Because the afternoon and evening are usually the times when I use my phone the most. And I had no idea how I would feel later. But one thing was clear. This was not just a day without a phone. It was a day where I started taking control of my own attention, and that changed something inside me. By the time the clock moved past noon, I felt calm, but I also knew something important. Morning is easier. Morning has structure. You wake up, you clean, you eat, you move. But the afternoon? That is when boredom begins to whisper. That is when energy drops. That is when the hand slowly starts searching for the phone again. And that is exactly what happened to me. After lunch, I sat on my bed for a few minutes. Normally, this is my scroll time. After eating, I would lie down and tell myself, just 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes usually turned into 45, but today, there was nothing in my hands. And suddenly, the silence felt different from the morning. In the morning, silence felt peaceful. Now, it felt heavy. My brain started looking for stimulation again. I felt a strange restlessness inside my chest. Not panic, not stress, just discomfort. It was like my brain was saying, "Okay, you proved your point. Now give me my usual reward." And that is when I understood something very powerful. My phone was not just a tool, it was my reward system. Whenever I felt bored, I used it. Whenever I felt stressed, I used it. Whenever I wanted excitement, I used it. Without it, I had to sit with my feelings, and that is not easy. So I stayed there. I didn't run, I didn't grab my phone, I just sat. And slowly, thoughts started coming. Not about social media, not about notifications, but about my life. I started thinking about my goals, about things I had postponed, about conversations I needed to have, about habits I wanted to change, and I realized something honest and uncomfortable. Sometimes I use my phone to avoid thinking deeply. Scrolling is easy, thinking is hard, watching is easy, reflecting is hard. And maybe that is why we choose the screen, because the screen distracts us from facing ourselves. That realization hit me strongly. Around 2:30 p.m., I decided to leave the house. Normally, when I go outside, I carry my phone like it is part of my body. I check maps, messages, music, updates, but today I left it at home. That decision felt brave, almost scary. What if someone calls? What if something happens? But I reminded myself, it is only one day. The world survived before smartphones. It will survive today, too. So I walked to the nearby park, without headphones, without music, without podcasts, just the sound of the real world. At first, the quiet felt too quiet. I could hear my own footsteps, the wind touching the trees, birds flying, children laughing in the distance, and something beautiful happened. My senses became sharper. When you remove constant digital noise, your brain becomes more sensitive to reality. Colors looked brighter, sounds felt clearer. Even the air felt different. I sat on a bench and just observed. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't consuming content. I was simply experiencing life. But let me be honest again. Not everything was magical. Around 4 p.m., I felt lonely. Yes, lonely. Even though I was surrounded by people, I realized something deep. Sometimes we don't use our phones because we are busy. We use them because we don't want to feel alone. Without my phone, I felt more exposed, more aware of my emotions. I couldn't escape into someone else's life. I had to stay in mine. And that moment taught me something powerful. If you cannot be alone without distraction, you are not truly comfortable with yourself. That truth was heavy, but it was important. Instead of running from that feeling, I stayed with it. I asked myself, why do I feel lonely right now? And I understood that I was not lonely because I had no one. I felt lonely because I was not used to being fully present with myself. There is a difference, and that difference changed how I see things. When I returned home, instead of collapsing into scrolling, I did something unusual. I opened a book, not because I forced myself, but because my mind was calm enough to focus, and something incredible happened. I read for almost 1 hour without stopping. No checking, no interruptions, no jumping between apps, just pure focus. And I felt strong, not physically, mentally, because attention is like a muscle. When you stop training it, it becomes weak. When you train it, it grows stronger. And that afternoon, I could feel my attention growing. That gave me confidence. As the sun started going down, I noticed something important. Time felt slower. Usually days pass very quickly. I blink, and it's evening. But that day felt long, full, rich. Not because I did something extraordinary, but because I was actually present for it. When you scroll for hours, your brain processes hundreds of fast images. It becomes overstimulated, and later everything feels blurry. But when you live slowly and consciously, every hour has weight, every moment has detail. That afternoon taught me something I will never forget. When you remove constant digital stimulation, life becomes deeper, not louder, deeper. As evening approached, I asked myself a serious question. If one day without my phone feels this powerful, what has my phone been taking from me all these years? It was not just taking time, it was taking focus, emotional awareness, real connection, deep thinking, inner peace, and I was giving it away freely. That thought made me emotional, not angry, not guilty, just aware. And awareness is the first step to change. By the end of the afternoon, I was no longer fighting the urge to check my phone. The urge was still there sometimes, but it was weaker, and I was stronger. I felt more grounded, more stable, more connected to reality, but the final test was still waiting, because nighttime was always my weakest moment, and I had no idea how I would handle that. As the sky slowly turned orange and then dark blue, I felt something inside me becoming very clear. The day was almost over, and I had survived without my phone. But this was not about survival anymore. This was about understanding, because the night was always my weakest time. Usually, my evenings look like this: dinner, then scrolling, then just one video, then another, then another. And suddenly, it is 11:30 p.m. I tell myself I deserve it. I worked hard today. I need to relax. But the truth is, that kind of relaxation never made me feel refreshed. It made me feel numb. Tonight was different. After dinner, I did not rush to my room. I stayed at the table a little longer with my mom. We talked, not about anything dramatic, just simple things. Her day, my thoughts, plans for the weekend. Normally, I half listen while checking my phone. But tonight, my eyes were not dropping to a screen. They were looking at her. And I realized something painful and beautiful at the same time. Presence is a gift. When you give someone your full attention, you are giving them respect. And I had not been doing that enough. That realization alone made this whole experiment worth it. Around 9:30 p.m., I went to my room. And I will be honest, the strongest temptation of the whole day came at that moment. Night is quiet. Night is emotional. Night makes you want comfort. And my comfort used to be my phone. My brain started saying, "You did well. Just check it now." The day is almost finished. One quick look won't destroy everything. It sounded logical, but I understood something very important. The last moment is the most important moment. If I gave up at the end, I would teach my brain something dangerous. You only need discipline until it becomes uncomfortable. And I didn't want to train myself that way. So I walked to my drawer. I looked at my phone. I didn't touch it. I just looked at it. And I asked myself one serious question. Is this device stronger than my decision? That question hit deeply, because this was no longer about technology. It was about self-control, about identity, about who I am becoming. And in that moment, I stepped back. I closed the drawer again. That small action made me feel powerful, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, confident way. Normally, I fall asleep with my phone in my hand. Sometimes the last thing I see before sleeping is a random video. My brain stays active. Bright light hits my eyes. And even when I close my eyes, images continue moving in my mind. But that night, everything was calm. I brushed my teeth slowly. I washed my face. I sat on my bed with a small lamp on. No noise, no blue light, just stillness. And something incredible happened. My thoughts became clearer. Instead of random content, I started thinking about the day. I replayed the morning sunlight, the peaceful breakfast, the quiet walk, the honest loneliness, the focused reading, the conversation with my mom. It felt like I had actually lived, fully, deeply, completely, not just consumed. When I turned off the light and lay down, I expected to feel bored, but I didn't. I felt calm. My body felt relaxed. My mind felt quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep naturally. No scrolling until exhaustion. No forcing my eyes to close. Just sleep. Real sleep. And the quality was different. I woke up the next morning feeling fresh, not heavy, not mentally crowded, fresh. That single day changed something inside me. Not because I hate phones, not because technology is evil, but because I finally understood balance. Here is what I learned clearly. 1. My phone is a tool. It is not my master. 2. Silence is uncomfortable only because I am not used to it. But silence is powerful. 3. Attention is my most valuable resource. If I protect it, my life improves. 4. Presence creates deeper experiences. Distraction creates shallow ones. 5. Self-control grows when you practice it in small ways. That day gave me something I didn't expect. Confidence. Not confidence in speaking, not confidence in appearance, confidence in my ability to choose, to say no, to stay disciplined, to control my habits instead of being controlled by them. If I cannot control one small habit, how will I build big dreams? If I cannot stay away from distraction for one day, how will I stay focused on long-term goals? This experiment was not about one device. It was about training my mind. And I realized something powerful. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want. But real freedom means not being controlled by your impulses. That day, I tasted a small piece of real freedom. No, I still use it. I still check messages. I still enjoy videos sometimes. But now, I am aware. And awareness changes everything. Now sometimes I leave my phone in another room. Sometimes I eat without it. Sometimes I go for a walk without headphones. And every time I do that, I feel connected to real life again. If you feel tired all the time, if you feel distracted, if you feel like days are passing too fast, try one day, just one. Not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, just to meet yourself again. You may discover that the world is quieter than you think, and inside that quiet, you might find clarity, you might find focus, you might find strength, and maybe, just maybe, you will realize that the most powerful thing you can control is your own attention. And when you control your attention, you start controlling your life. Before I end this story, I want you to understand something very clearly. This was not just a day without a phone. It was a day where I proved to myself that I am stronger than my habits. It was a day where I stopped running from silence and started listening to my own thoughts. It was a day where I chose presence over distraction, focus over noise, and real life over a glowing screen. And if I can do it, you can do it too. You do not need to throw your phone away. You do not need to become perfect. You just need one brave decision. One day, one experiment, one moment where you say, I control my time, I control my attention, I control my life. Because your attention is your power. Where your attention goes, your future grows. If you give it to random videos, your life becomes random. If you give it to growth, discipline, learning, and real connection, your life becomes meaningful. Do not let small habits quietly steal your big dreams. Take back your focus, take back your time, take back yourself. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you think deeply, then stay connected with me. Subscribe to this channel because here we grow together, we learn together, and we build stronger minds together. Your journey to a more focused, powerful life starts with one small decision, and maybe today is that day.